Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Today is episode number 40 of Weekday News Capsule with Sridhar Chityalaji. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskaram and good morning and happy Thanksgiving Thursday and have a wonderful time with families and remember all the kind of good things that's happened and thank all the people who have been part of that experience.
Thank you and same to you, sir. And viewers, today we are going to start with a bang. This is something that you are not going to see in mainstream media. This is a glimpse into Pennsylvania legislature state hearings, or I should say Pennsylvania state legislature hearings, where they are looking at how the ballots were coming in, the counts were coming in. And before I let the cat out of the bag, I'd like Chityalaji to sort of set the stage a little bit, and then we will take a quick look at this video.
Great. I think the whole election process is being contested at two levels. One by Rudy Giuliani and his team, representing the President of the United States, and then Sidney Powell and Lynn Woodward, who are focused much around the Dominion software and systems. So this particular video, which is being presented, sets the context as to how, just by a flip, 700,000 votes changed hands or shifted. And when that happened, the number of votes out of that lot, which went to President Trump versus the number of votes that was cast to Vice President Biden. So they're trying to show that there's something kind of fundamentally wrong, and this is just a reflection of one piece of evidence in terms of the whole process being rigged or the whole process having flaws in the system. It's a very compelling presentation, right? And this is all being heard, and more such hearings will take place as time passes on for people to learn and make informed decisions on how to take this forward.
So at the very beginning of the chart where there's a circle, it says on election day. What that indicates is there is a spike in loaded votes, 337,000 plus or minus some votes that were added in there in one big batch. So that was an anomaly in the reporting. Normally you would expect to see a smooth curve going up, not any big spikes. That's kind of what Greg was talking about, the anomalies of loading and uploading those votes. So that big spike that occurs there is a prime indicator of fraudulent voting.
And that's 604,000 votes in 90 minutes, is that right?
Correct. This is 337 votes, 337,000 votes in that
period of time.
Yes.
And when you look at this entire curve with all these spikes, can you calculate how much of a vote that accounted for Biden and how much for Trump?
Close to 600,000. I think our figures were about 570 some odd thousand that all those spikes represented over time.
For Biden?
Correct.
And how much for Trump?
I think it was a little over 3,200.
So those of you who think that this is a staged scene from a hotel, you can look up the names of the people who are doing the hearings and you can decide for yourself whether this is authentic or not. This is not being covered by the mainstream media. We are presenting it as we saw it. Now, let's go on to the next thing, sir. What other states are considering doing something like this? And how long, first of all, how long do you think it will take before a certain determination happens on these hearings?
I think there is two questions. Let me kind of answer the first one. I think there is a set of activities taking place next week, which is week of November 30th. So you may see a fair amount of activity. Unless there is a prima facie evidence which the presidential team can present, these cases will be very quickly dismissed. So this is not going to be hours and days and months. This could either move forward or it will be very rapidly dismissed sometime next week. That's the first part. Which is this? Which are the states that are kind of getting into some? Now, apparently, there is a Michigan lawsuit around something similar. There is a 76-page affidavit filed by the Linwood's team, with detailed explanations of the data exchanges. So you have that. Then you have the news coming through is Nevada has acceded to a Supreme Court kind of hearing on the voter fraud. You have that. Then you have in Wisconsin, there's a case filed that is basically to annul the result or delay the announcement of the result. So you find that you have in Pennsylvania, you have in Georgia, then you have in Wisconsin, then you have in Michigan. You also have in Nevada. You have in Nevada, Justin Russell is going to be hearing the evidential hearing that's stated for December 3rd. So vast number of these things will take place next week. Now, everybody was asking the question, is the elections fair? Is the elections rigged? Is the elections, adopted to the specific norms? There's also been anomalies whether what can be passed by state legislature and what can be passed by Supreme Court, whether Supreme Court exceeded its reach in terms of what is not its and what is the providence of the legislature. Because in some instances, the legislature, you may have Democrats having lesser numbers relative to the Republicans by way of the voting patterns, right? So that issue will also be looked at as they go through this process. The whole software stuff, how it's going to play out, I don't know. But apparently, 75 witnesses have given an affidavit validating looking at the software stuff. All this points out to is a very disturbing scenario, which is this something that people were aware and people chose to remain silent? And is this something that, how come it's all of a sudden, surfaced to the top? The Atlantis Journal, Atlanta Journal, Dick Morris's journal, apparently had pointed out that this was coming way back in October, prior to the elections. We can share that link and the article in PGurus post, but people did not take heed of it. Okay, so I think they seem to have been. Now, there's been total silence, not only from mainstream media, but also from many political leaders, who either are taking a view, this is all kind of nonsense to distract, or they're not being transparent in saying, look, there seems to be a problem. In the interest of United States and in the interest of transparency, it's important that this issue is put to rest through a proper legal process so that we can announce to the world that this is a fair and just, and all these things cannot go on, and this has to be brought to an end. So we haven't seen, these almost now 20 days since the elections have elapsed, 23 days, and we have not seen anything coming except President Trump and his team, and to some extent, some of the other members of the Republican Party making claim that there has been a problem, and then of course the legal team, which has been looking at this, making the claim. So I think that's the other other part of it. So just to wrap up this discussion, so we'll get to know a lot more next week. It's very interesting that Mr. Biden made a statement which was carried to in the mainstream media, that the Americans would not accept the overturning of the election results. As I don't want to go into the details, but it's a very interesting statement made by the vice presidential contender, who is currently the person who is called as the president-elect, at least by some media.
Thanks for that update. And let's look at what has been happening in the Asia Pacific region. We've had two different accords, RCEP, and then you have the CPTPP These are slightly different things, and China is spearheading one. On the other one, it wants to become a member of. But there are some things that are now coming to light in terms of what is in the wording of the RCEP. Perhaps someone needs to shine a spotlight on. What are your thoughts, sir? When you have multiple agreements between the same set of countries, which agreement takes precedence? This is just my curiosity question, sir.
I got it. I think you see, again, media plays its role in what I call is much more divisive and non-enlightening mechanisms or models. CPTPP, that's why the word, it is Comprehensive, Progressive, Trans-Pacific Partnership, which frames a broad set of issues within the CPTPP framework that includes labor laws, that includes intellectual property rights, that includes environmental protection issues, that includes set of trading agreements between the countries, that includes legal frameworks and partnerships that needs to be embedded, labor laws, etc. So it is a much more comprehensive partnership, not just merely removing barriers and tariffs and allowing free access of trade using a set of rules. Whereas the RCEP is much more wishy-washy. It can be bilateral, it can be multilateral, it leaves everything else, and it only talks about, subsidies and other types of barriers. That's why I said, when we discussed the RCEP, we had mentioned RCEP, most of it is already in place. By the time they come to the threshold of this 70%, 75%, the benefits from the RCEP could be a few years away, maybe a decade away, maybe 12 years away, maybe. It's much more like, ceremonial kind of a partnership. I question the wisdom and the rationale why China is using RCEP. Is it using RCEP more for a political purpose and also symbolic purpose, and also whether it is using that as a backdoor negotiating mechanism on the South China Sea issues, because its perception is that it will not be, that US may not be in RCEP actively, and with Biden is the current presidential elect, that there will be much more free rein for China to use these mechanisms. This seems to be the same situation with CPTPP. So you have one author saying one should do it, and then you have another, William Pasek, saying, no, here's the problem. William's words are absolutely spot on. CPTPP, China should never be allowed to come in because it's not going to adhere to any of these rules. Environment, labor laws, branding, intellectual property, all these kinds of issues is no, it's a showstopper, okay, for China, because it's not going. I mean, all these policies China has never enacted, and imagine being done under the Xi Jinping regime. So that's the problem.
Well, we also should remember that the International Court of Justice in Hague had passed some orders, and China said, we will not abide by these orders. This had to do with a territorial dispute, I believe, with Indonesia. I could be wrong about the country, but this was a judgment handed against China, and China said, no, we are not going to honor this one. And so this kind of a brazen attitude towards other countries. It's Philippines. Okay, I stand corrected. It's Philippines. And I think Duarte, right? He was also trying to make some noise about that. Yeah. So this happened a few years ago. But it kind of gives you an idea of the mindset of the country, of their leadership, how they are looking at this whole scenario as it's playing out across various theaters. Whether it is a Biden presidency or a continuing Trump presidency, what needs to happen is whenever you have these agreements, people have to play by the rules. Why then have agreements in the first place if you don't intend on playing by the rules? So all these things are going to come into play. Even though all these accords are being signed, the proof of the pudding, as they say, is in its eating. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Sir, we are almost done with today's segment. Last 1 minute on the possible acquisition by Salesforce. What are your thoughts on that, sir? Is that a good marriage? What does Salesforce tend to gain by this new productivity tool?
Well, I think Salesforce has been in acquisitive mode in terms of building inorganically its business, which is no different to many of these companies in the valley, right? So whether it's Oracle, whether it is Salesforce, whether it is Alphabet, whether it is Apple, whether it is Amazon, they have been inorganically building. The whole thing is around cloud infrastructure, analytics, and cloud services seems to be the name of the game. So I think it's a very important acquisition for Mark Benioff, should it kind of come off. We're expecting to hear the announcement. So to me, it would be a great opportunity for Salesforce to demonstrate it is leapfrogging into the next league. So whenever you talk about all this cloud, you only talk about Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. So who knows? Within a short span, we could have Salesforce coming into the mainstream within that parameter. Having said that, there was a major outage just for the people of the AWS outage. Even my television, we were not getting a proper service in New York. Whether they were part of the cloud infrastructure, I don't know, but there was a kind of a major outage yesterday. So there's a lot of things that probably still people are looking at in terms of expanding the capabilities within that infrastructure. So, our friends in Salesforce are looking at, Slack as a potential kind of a platform to plug some of the gaps. May not be nothing to do with the outage, but to the gaps in its capability kind of value chain.
For those who have not heard of it, Slack is a productivity enhancement tool. I've used it a little bit. It can be used inter-company or it used mostly intra-company, inside the company, where you can share documents and files and notes and messages and things like that. For instance, if you had 4 people attending a meeting and then there are follow-up items, everybody gets notified. What is the difference between this and email? Not much, except it's the way it is delivered, how important it is, because we are all looking at things, we have a very short attention span these days. So Slack seems to try to make the best use of that. Any rate, let's see how it plays out. So that brings us to a close of
some of the analytical tools which are embedded within the Slack. Isn't that also the focus of the interest of Salesforce?
Yeah. Yes, that is true. Absolutely. And sir, I just wanted to know if there's anything else you want to add. Otherwise, we can wind it down because I have a very thankful message for our viewers.
Got it. I just wanted to go back to the CPTPP and RCEP and just wrap that discussion. Indonesia has moved its advanced guard forces to Nikuno Island, kind of island, further into the South China, fearing any potential incursions from South China, from the Chinese, because they have seen fishing is one of the biggest areas of contention, both in Indonesia as well as in Philippines, with regard to the South China dispute. It's just another example that the partnership is instilling more kind of fear and deterrence rather than everything to be kind of hunky-dory. That's the only kind of piece that I wanted to add to conclude that RCEP discussion and CPTPP discussion.
Thanks for that update. And viewers, PGurus thanks all of you for helping us scale the 100,000 mark. We crossed 100,000 today. We are around 100,020 today, right now. And this could not have happened without all of your support. We thank you from the bottom of my heart. Sridharji, you have been certainly, you've really helped us to scale this. And let's hope that this news capsule, this way of presenting news every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 6:30 p.m. India will keep growing and we get more viewers to come and watch us. So once again, thank you all for your support. Please do subscribe to our channel and please also donate. And we'll be back tomorrow with news capsule. Namaskar and see you tomorrow, sir.
Namaskar, and I just want to say thank you to everybody. Happy Thanksgiving and congratulations, Sree Iyer ji. Your effort in building this platform as a voice of alternative and voice of what is a reality, voice of reality and voice of alternative. And wonderful to experience the 100,000 mark in terms of membership. That's just a small step towards the march towards the next milestone of 250,000 before we get to that 1 million milestone that we have set ourselves to accomplish. So very happy to be supportive and very happy to be one of the partners in your journey and bringing the message across to the people, which generally they don't see in the mainstream media.
Thank you very much, sir, and goodbye and see you tomorrow.